So, good morning. Welcome to our webinar, Email Tips in 40 Minutes with Spotler. My name is Jessica. I'm the marketing manager for SpotlerUK, and I'm joined by my two colleagues, Christian and Richard, who are going to talk you through the tips a little bit later on. I'll let them introduce themselves. I will do it no justice otherwise. Just before we begin, a little bit about Spotler for those of you who don't know. We are part of a wider group across Europe and the UK. We have over 10,000 users in the marketing and the customer service space using our products every day to increase their marketing results, their sales, and their customer service. We have over 4,000 companies that rely on Spotler products to connect with their customers and their prospects and leads. And on average, we send over 18 billion messages via whether that's email, social, WhatsApp, or chat. So hopefully we know what we're talking about and we can pass some of those success stories over to you guys today. We have a number of different products within our marketing automation suite. So over the years, we have acquired a number of different brands in the marketing and customer service space. These are just some of them. And what we have done is we've now amalgamated them into one whole Spotler suite. So essentially all your marketing, all your sales and all your customer service activities all under one roof. So it makes it super easy, one login and all your information is there. We work across the B2B, the B2C and the government landscape as well. So just some of the products we have: email marketing, we have a CRM system, we have some website personalization tools so you can personalize your search tools on your website. We can make product recommendations. We have some website tracking tools so you can identify the companies and the individuals on your website as well. So when it's all used in conjunction with each other, it can be a really powerful tool. Alongside the software, we also are real humans. So we also offer a number of different services. I'd say we're heavily invested in our customers' marketing and sales activities and their customer service. So we really want to see you succeed using our products and our platform. So we offer a number of different services and consultancy along the way as well. We are 5-star on Trustpilot, just to blow our own trumpet. So don't just take our word for it. We've got some great reviews, which we're actually really proud of. On both Trustpilot and G2 Crowd as well, so have a look. Just a little bit about housekeeping then for the webinar today. We're going to try and stick to 40 minutes for the email tips, and there will be a time for Q&A throughout that. So please do, as the session's going on, pop your questions into the question box, and we will make time for those at the end of each session to get your questions answered. We will send out the recording and a copy of the slides from this webinar, hopefully later today or tomorrow afternoon. So they'll hit your inbox, and it will also be available on our website as well under our resource section. Anything else, any other questions that you guys have at a later date? We've got some email addresses on there that you can contact us, or if you want to find out more or you're interested in a demo or a free trial of one of our products, then please just drop us an email and we'll get you sorted. I am now going to hand over to my two lovely colleagues, Christian and Richard, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Enjoy the webinar, guys.
Thanks. Yes, let me share exactly the same slides as you can already see. And we're away. Christian.
Seamless. Yes, just checking you can all still see the presentation. So I'm Christian. Forgive me that my intro is not as good as Rich's. He literally is supposed to be good with words. And this picture was taken yesterday because marketing said my current one on LinkedIn was not right for this. So forgive the looking off center camera here, but I'm an account director at the Spotler Group. I work with clients across lots of different industries and at different development stages of their company growth, making sure that they make the most from their digital marketing. Really looking forward to talking to everybody this morning.
And I'm Richard, as I write a lot of the content, work on the marketing team or on the account directing team, and I tried to sort of summarize there, the sort of the LinkedIn friendly bio of all the buzzwords that we like to use in marketing so much, and then my actual job, which is writing interesting stuff, and that includes a lot of the stuff we're going to talk to you about today. It's writing the content for the emails that we're going to show you, and also writing the reports and the summaries that we're going to draw on. And I've shamelessly put loads of download links to all the resources I'm going to talk about because I wrote them and I'm really proud of them, and they will be available to you for a lot more than 40 minutes. Throughout that, what I've tried to do for my bits is pull the kind of the big headliney bits that help you think about what's going on, and then if you want to take the deep dives into what those trends mean for you guys, then it'll all be there laid out for you. So yeah, Christian's going to talk about the B2C side. That's his kind of specialty a lot more. I grew up on the B2B side of the Spotler group, so I'm going to tackle those bits, and then there's a few bits between us I think that apply to both sections, but we'll bounce the questions off each other, and we've hopefully brought a couple of different perspectives to it to make this as useful as possible for you guys this morning.
Fantastic. So let's get cracking. We're going to start with B2C, those bits. Now, a lot of things, as Richard says, they will apply to both. There is just sort of general thinking principles within this, and some bits that will dive into specific B2C parts. So as the slide says, B2C tips. Let's go. We're going to dive straight in with kind of ideas on our segmentation and life cycle strategies. So what we're trying to do here is think about how we want to create personalized marketing that aligns with what customers want to do, also better understand and engage their audiences, and treating those two as separate things. As marketeers, a lot of us may have come into marketing with a love of being creative, creating things, and then over the last set of years becoming more and more data driven. So how do we use what we're sending out to better understand who we're talking to, and then in turn to engage with those audiences? There's a few key strategies that we'll talk about over the next couple of slides, which is around static segmentation, so kind of fixed attributes, and dynamic segmentation, so real-time adaptation to customer behaviors. And we'll talk a little bit about life cycle momentum as well. So thinking about our life cycle journeys, at what stages people are at, and how we're going to move them through, and what content they will want to hear about. So let's have a little look at static segmentation for a moment. So these are those defined groups based on those stable criteria. They're not impacted by purchases or engagement on site. They're based on kind of demographics. So it could be location, it could be age bracket, it could be all sorts of things. The benefit of this is it gives us a really clear framework to work from, and will kind of be a bit more of a larger grouping potentially. So I work with travel companies who will use a county, for example, when they're looking at breaks, locations to how close they are to airports, ports, and so forth. And then they will send things out, last minute offers, flying out from Gatwick in the next 48 hours, for example. Some of the benefits of this is it's really straightforward to implement. At the core of this is good data collection, and that obviously is something that we want to be thinking about all the time. What do we want to know about our audience in kind of broad strokes? It's a very efficient way to be looking at our audience targeting, because again, we're looking at these larger groups, grouping people together and saying, right, we know this about these people, so we can send them this. And what it's going to allow us to do is to send out to larger groups and have consistency on that large scale kind of outreach. So static segmentation is a fantastic tool. Sometimes I've talked with people who feel like the conversation has moved on from static segmentation to fully up to the minute engagement segmentation. Actually, they both play a part. And actually, if we can be grouping people both with static information and also that kind of dynamic information, we've got a really good place to be working from. So let's have a little bit more of a think about our dynamic segmentation. So what this is going to do is allow us to work kind of in real time segment adjustment. So people engage with a specific popover on site, or they click on a certain link. What we're going to do is make immediate, in the moment, automated decisions on that. What we're looking at here is we want our email marketing to always feel like it is something tailored for them, based either on static information or on that dynamic information. So we can then start to group people based on, for example, RFM analysis. For those that don't know, that's the recency, frequency, and monetary value of somebody. And you'll see in the corner of the slide there, we've got the two ideas of a potential loyalist and someone we're about to lose. So we're using that dynamic segmentation to be grouping people at a top level there. So it's still larger groups potentially, but it is dynamically adjusted. So for an example there, thinking about a potential loyalist, we're looking for someone that has very recently engaged, very frequently engaged, and is of medium value. So again, as you're capturing data, as people are engaging on the site and as people are making purchases, this data will become available to you. So how are we going to put campaigns in place, put journeys in place that adapt as people move around these? A really powerful way to be looking at this is then on the other side of the potential loyalist or the champion or the people who you know spend a lot, are engaged and so forth. What about those you're about to lose? There is customers that are engaging, not as engaging as recently. They hardly engage at all, but they have been high value at some point. This is a super valuable segment to go after. So then what happens if people are moving from a potential loyalist over the course of time into that about to lose segment? What are we going to do? The whole purpose here is to make email marketing feel more like a conversation, to feel like it's tailored and guided to exactly where they are in their journey with you. You know, the sometimes a bulk campaign to everybody is really, really useful, but the bulk campaign plus these custom, more conversational emails are really, really valuable as well. Think about it as going from a webinar like this, where Rich and I are talking to you one to many, to going from us having a breakout call afterwards and going one to one. It's going to be a completely different conversation and one we need to be aware of. Now, when we're thinking about these dynamic segments, we need to also be aware of our implementation of this. It does require more advanced analytics being available and being pushed in, so making sure that your tools support you within that, making sure that integration is continuous. If we're going to have a conversation, not to stretch this metaphor too far, if Rich and I are discussing something and he asks me a question and then I come back a month later, it might not be the most free-flowing of conversations. So what we want to be doing is, as people are engaging in that moment, we want to make sure that we have the right balance between, we saw you did this, have this, to making it a useful interaction, a useful engagement. That leads us kind of more onto our life cycle management and thinking about that and who we're going to be talking to. The static segmentation, we're thinking about that being kind of locked in time for the moment. And then with these, it will be kind of dynamically adjusting all the time. So if we're taking another tip from this, it's planning out your engagement so that you can almost have two parallel channels. What is someone going to receive from you in a bulk campaign, and what is someone going to receive from you one-to-one? How can those journeys work harmoniously? And again, looking at this life cycle management, you're going to have people who are on completely different paths with you at the moment. So looking at each stage and planning what content they're going to get at the point of sign up. For example, at the point of sign up versus at the decision-making stage. At the point of sign up, we might take that initial moment of sign up journey to send an email which explains who we are. It's not a sales driving thing, it's a trust building thing. I talk with a lot of clients who want to focus just on driving sales, but actually those things can work in parallel, particularly in a planned journey. So taking the opportunity to say, this is who we are, this is why you should trust us. By the time they've gone through that point of sign up, right the way through into the decision making before the purchase, they know who you are. They're at the point of making a decision. The content we want to send is very different. So when you're looking at your email, make sure that you have life cycle at the core of it. How are you going to treat someone who's signed up in the last 24 hours versus someone who's been signed up for a month and has engaged multiple times on the site? What are you going to do? So thinking about that is really, really important. What this allows us to do is to align that messaging at each point, but also make it feel more like a conversation, like it's a trusted partner that they're working with, who they want to engage with and spend money with. So if we look at a couple of strategies here, I mentioned about welcome content, balance customer experience and trust building content with also saying what your offer is. And retention campaigns are going to be very different and treat them very differently. That it might be our point to give an offer. So just something that gives them an incentive to re-engage, to make that purchase. And then again, the reactivation campaign so is going to be different to that retention piece. Retention is to hold on. Reactivation is to almost start again. Think about those pots of people. Sorry for grouping people as pots, but putting people into data segments and having those there and making sure that you're making decisions based on that. The momentum piece is the speed of journey through those life cycle stages. So you've defined them. How can your data support you in understanding it takes someone X amount of time to go from sign up through to purchase? And then with that, what it's going to allow you to do is to put automated journeys in place so that you can try and hit those key points, those key strategies, those key strategic points. And what are we trying to do with all of this? We're trying to make sure that we boost the lifetime value of customers, that you become a trusted partner, that engagement continues to build, they continue to work with you for the long haul, and that's the improved loyalty side as well, because that you are showing that it is not just a get the cash and on we go. This is you address what is needed at each stage. Another idea, very briefly to talk about, is ABCD testing. Lots of ideas, test them. I mentioned about the left brain, right brain, creative and data side of things. Testing is our space where those things are going to combine. So lots of people will have ideas and thoughts and will just be naturally very gifted at having ideas, understanding of psychology and how people will engage. Actually, in a team environment, oftentimes someone will say, what about if we tried this? The best thing that we can do is take that to testing. So taking multiple variants of content and testing that out. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about design afterwards, but the bit that to speak to here, the next tip, is make sure that you're not just looking at the metrics that you've been told are the right ones for you, but the ones that are the right ones. Define what the right metric is. Open rate is talked about a lot, but if there is no value to somebody just opening an email without clicking the button and going to the site and booking a demo, actually if you've got 100% open, it might not be as useful as a 10% click rate. So actually define the success of all tests with that. Final piece, as I'm running close to the time that I have been allotted, is just kind of a note on the success that has been achieved by implementing some of these strategies. Understanding the momentum journey of someone from sign up through to decision through to purchase. Understanding the way to set up those dynamic segments and also those static segments, and making sure that the life cycle is defined. Our strategic consultants implement these strategies for our clients on a daily basis, and these are just some of the stats, talking 165% increase in campaign revenue, 66% increase in email revenue, 21% email online sales uplift, 1.5 million in automated campaign revenue, and 4.7 million on-site revenue, using all those things that we talked about, using a data-driven campaign calendar, data-driven segmentation, using those journeys for cart and browse, reminders, again, both of those fall into journey, and then obviously connecting with email and website. So as you're looking at these things, as you're looking at the ideas there and looking more into the idea of how you'll group your data, it does work. It really does. And if you would like to have any more conversation with us, do let us know. Otherwise, I think that is the end of my slides, Rich. Over to you.
It is, unless someone's got any questions on the bits that Christian's covered from a particular
Absolutely.
B2C perspective before we dive into my B2B bits.
We have had some questions come in. Thank you, Christian. Some really useful tips in there. So, question number 1. I work in the wedding industry and I'm keen to send personalised emails to people that relate to their different cultural groups. For example, to send Jewish wedding content to Jewish wedding couples. My team disagree with this targeting. Is this a no-no legally or morally? What's your advice on that?
Good question. I think I haven't seen specific groupings like that. I think the question to wrestle with, unfortunately, I didn't do the right study to advise you legally, but looking at kind of data collection, it's an idea that you will have to work through with the team is only collect data that you're going to use, and actually consider the idea of form abandon. If somebody is uncomfortable sharing that information, we have a much higher likelihood of people not submitting the data and just moving on. So it is a culturally sensitive one. What I'd love to do is just have a conversation with our strategic consultants here, and I'll come back to you in more detail on ideas on that one. But I think it's an interesting one. I see both sides of that one. I'm sorry not to have a direct answer, but I'd love to come back to you on in more detail on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get in touch after the webinar, Jenny. So thank you for your question. Next one, what are the key benefits of using static segmentation in marketing campaigns?
Yeah, so what you can do there is you can plan for the long, you can take more broad strokes and plan for the longer term. So we talked a little bit in those strategic consultancy slides about the content calendar. Actually, if you're working on those static ones, you can say, right, I know about this group, I can plan how I'm going to approach that group overall. So it's looking at kind of broader strokes for campaign parts. And actually, the bit that you have to balance with the automated reactive stuff is making sure that it feels sensitive. I think it was Jenny who asked the question around kind of sensitivity about speaking about things. Actually, some people, for example, if they clicked a link on the site and immediately a salesperson called them, actually that's a challenge for that reactive point of view. So working in broader strokes and taking a longer term view is one of the benefits alongside those reactive ones.
Fab. Last question, I believe, on your section. With regards to A and B testing, what amount of your audience is good to use from your audience list for each test before you do the complete send?
Yeah, great question. We would advise, it depends on list size, basically, because what you're looking for is a decent segment. So it would depend on list size, I think. I think looking at that, I think what you'd be looking to ask the question of, if I said, for example, let's say it was a 10,000 list and you said 20%, actually you've got a decent segment to understand it from. So I'd work back from how big the list size is, and if you were having conversations with them, at what point would you be comfortable that the right result has been able to see? To answer it in that non-political way, start at 20%, see where you go.
Fab. Thank you, Christian. I think that is all. So over to you, Richard.
All right, yes, dive into some of the B2B stuff. This is all based on our own research and the work that we've done. So that's the first caveat. I'm going to talk about a couple of the tests we do, and then a couple of the ways you can run your own tests and a few bits and pieces. What I'd really like you to take from these is to think about the kind of things that you want to test. So I'm going to start with the HTML versus Outlook design, and we had a clear winner. Your audience might be different. What I'm trying to encourage you to do is to test elements, not say only use Outlook emails because for us they work better. That would be pretty bad advice depending on exactly where you're watching from. So with that caveat, these are things that we've done, and these are tests from our own Great British Split Test. It's an annual exercise that we run. We run it for 9 months at a time across as many different audience groups as we can possibly manage. and say pull the dots together and try and inform them. You'll see the impact if you get emails from us, which most of you will, because that's probably how you got to the webinar today. Webinar invites are part of this test, very much so. So the headline news is actually out what we call Outlook style emails, so that text only without any sort of colored backing or buttons or screenshots or whatever. Most of the time they perform better. We tested 35 different tests of this with all, as I said, with as many different audiences as we could think of. Outlook won 16 of them, which is just about a majority. HTML weirdly works better for what we call sales messages, which is where the call to action is book a demo, have a free trial. So that's the middle to low funnel, if you want to use the term. For the higher up stuff, so the event promotions like today's webinar and the newsletters where we send out 3 recent blogs, 2 new white papers and an event, which traditionally actually are more HTML designed, Outlook still wins from those. And that's true of every seniority level. In the full white paper, which I'll link to in a couple of slides' time, there are some interesting different breakouts between, we had directors, we had managers, and we had executives/assistants, because they're all coming at the buying journey from slightly different elements. That's a life cycle type thing. Executives and assistants in the Spotler world are the ones logging into the platform every day, building those emails, creating those pop-ups, setting up those journeys. Managers are kind of looking at the life cycle, the RFM data, the slightly middle to higher level data, and then directors are looking at the overall revenue from the whole thing, saying, we've spent X amount on this platform. Has it multiplied our revenue successfully enough, or is it costing us more than it's making us? So we pitch slightly different angles of the product based on seniority, which is a static group rather than dynamic group. Just to, there is some tying it all together. It all comes together quite nicely. So there's, so I read the full white paper, but in this particular test, Outlook emails work better, which is great because you don't have to spend a huge amount of time designing emails. You can write what you want to say in plain text, put the links in, and if you're marketing to the same kind of audience that we are, that's your friend. We also did subject line split test. Now, as we said, opens, it's a metric you can use. It probably shouldn't be your main KPI, but you're not going to get any clicks if nobody opens, so it matters. There's a balance in how you determine what's useful. And as we said, if it's a newsletter type email, then actually the open might be enough. If you're just trying to inform someone and deliver value straight in the inbox, then you don't need them to click. That's fine. If it's a book a demo, if it's take a free trial, if it's come to this webinar, you do need the click. So you have to make the decision on what's right for you there. And we did the fashionable thing and got AI to spit out a load of different email subject lines compared to what we wrote as individuals. And these are some of the direct tests that we did all the way through. And in this case, AI wasn't more successful than human written content in any group. So we've broken it down by customers versus leads. Customers overwhelmingly prefer humans. Leads are more divided, but humans still won out. B2B, roughly equal, didn't make much difference. Us selling to companies who then sell on to individual consumers preferred human written and combined audience. So like for this webinar, there's a mix of you B2B and B2C on this group. So we get a combined, invite, and they, on a 3-to-1 ratio, preferred human written. And what I've taken from this is you shouldn't use AI to make the finished product. The next thing I want to touch on in a minute is the AI that we built into the Mail Plus email editor. And I use that in 2 different ways, which I'll show you. And it's generating that first idea, which you then build off, and it's then adapting what you've already written in a couple of different ways. But this test is saying, like, I'm going to hand the work over to AI. I'm just going to put in what it gives me, and that, as AI is now, doesn't work. So if you're handing your entire job off to AI and just spending all day on Wordle or whatever, is Wordle still around? I
imagine it's still around.
I think, not sure how popular it is, but anyway, so yeah, if you're handing your entire job over to AI, then you're probably doing yourself an injustice. If you're using AI to build on, as we're going to touch on more, then you're probably in a better position. The other document we've produced recently is a benchmark. This is something that Spotler Group in the Netherlands did for a long time, and then now that we're part of that group, we've picked up on the trend. So we're looking at overall performance of email generally because it remains sort of the core of the Spotler group. We obviously have all the different modules that we've talked about, but email very much a key player for us still. And the good news is email is still growing. It's not dead. We know that. We still hear email is dead. It really isn't. It's not even struggling. It's in fact growing. So the most recent benchmark, we went back over the 3 last complete calendar years, and we see a 21% growth in the number of email campaigns being sent out. So email's flying. It's great. It's fantastic. Delivery rates, which, okay, we'll talk about that a little bit in deliverability towards the end, because while it's often thrown to kind of more technical team, there are some bits that as marketers we can think about and help it along its way. But we're in a great place with deliverability with 98.6% success in audience. Unsubscribes, they are nudging upwards, as are bounces, emails being sent out successfully not going through. Weirdly, bounces are growing more than unsubscribes. So I know we're talking about email more generally, but there's room to talk a lot about the data. So dodgy data is costing you more of your list than people saying, actually, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm out. So both of those numbers, they're growing by, I think it's a couple of percent, if I remember across the whole document, which again will be available as a download off the PDF of the slides. But both of those are growing less than the growth in sending. So I think we're in a pretty good place, but it is something that you still need to be aware of to see if you're sending to the right segments. If a lot of a particular kind of person are subscribing, you need to send them a different kind of content, approach them a different way, use different language. Maybe they prefer HTML over Outlook after all sorts of things you can do with that data, but take a look at it because it's having an impact, as it will overall. And then once the emails have gotten there, opens again growing, and that is good. You want more people to open your emails. You want people to read them, because if they don't open them, they can't do anything else. Clicks are diving down a little bit. I put 15% because it sounds more, it sounds like, wow, that's a big exciting stat to grab your attention this morning. But we're still at 1.5% compared to 1.89%. So it's not nosedive catastrophically. It's trending down. Maybe we're getting too good at delivering value in the email. Maybe people are getting the value that they want to see in their inbox, and they're not worried about clicking through. Again, this is benchmark data. That's across all campaigns, all audiences, all groups. There'll be some nuances. There'll be subgroups. There'll be different segments behaving differently. But that's the headline. Take a look at your click rates and open rates by whatever groups you use, because any change is worth noting, seeing what you can do about it, and using split testing to see if it boosts it, makes it worse, whatever else happens. And as I say there, the whole UK benchmark document is available at SpotlerUK.UK/resources, which is where this presentation will get uploaded if it's not in your inbox tomorrow afternoon. So AI and Mail Plus, I said I'm going to talk about it because the subject line testing we did a while ago before we built this in, so that was just using a standard ChatGPT license. There are 2 ways that I've started using the AI in Mail Plus, and the first is generating ideas. Now, what I want to play is I use this for kind of intros and in-between bits. So I asked it to say, what does it mean that Google's no longer removing third-party cookies? It spat me out a paragraph. Great. And then in that particular email, I go on to talk about what Spotler does with the data it gathers from third-party cookies, how we use first-party data, what zero-party data is. There's all kinds of things we can dive more deeply into there. And frankly, if you as a human can't talk to humans about your product better than a computer can, I'd be a little bit worried. You should be the expert in your product far more than the computer. But AI can kick you off. It can get those bits that just need to be part of the email, part of the blog even as well. This, I say it's in Mail Plus, but there's no reason you can't use it to help you write blogs as well. The other thing it does, optimizing content. Now I studied history at university. I'm a very wordy communicator, writer. It's probably coming across in how many words I'm using compared to how many Christian used. It's how I was brought up with. You've got a week to write 5,000 words about this particular Chinese emperor. It takes a long time to get back out of that mode. So I took the website content that I wrote that hopefully attracted you to this webinar today. It's 101 words. That's a bit long for an email segment. So I said to the AI, can you make it half as long. Well, it gets down to 56 words, which I know is slightly over half, but it's close enough, and it still contains the key factors. And it's like, okay, you've taken that, now do that again. So you can, this is the thing I should have put a better screenshot on, but you can optimize the content that is already written. You can layer it the way that ChatGPT is a conversational thing. The AI in Mail Plus is very much the same. So you can say, okay, I like what you've written, make it 50% shorter again. It does it again, and it's still it's done that. And there's no reason you couldn't do it in reverse. It's not a problem I have writing more words about a subject, but you absolutely can use it to say, okay, I've written 27 words, double it again, build it up to how long you need it to be. And then segmentation's a little bit mostly similar. It's one of those things where the segments from B2C will be different, but the process is the same. And I've just listed a couple that we've used in our main split testing. I've touched on the job title segments when we talked about HTML versus Outlook emails, and the way that those different job titles or different levels of the hierarchy interact with the product, think about the product, use it. We also target particular competitors. You know, we've got case studies for all the different people that have come to us from different ESPs, which I'm obviously not going to give them the airtime and talk about who they are. You know who they are, it's fine. But we've got particular case studies, we've got particular selling points against all these different competitor modules, so we focus much more heavily on them. And then complementary tools, so particular CRMs, particular e-commerce platforms, particular website builders. There's all different ways that we relate to them, and we're fortunate in the customer base to have a sort of a case study for pretty much everything that we could think of and different ways to use it. So lead into it, focus on those. And these are static segments. And then what I was thinking as Christian was talking is you take the static segments and then you build the dynamic actions on top of that. Because if a company is heavily invested in using dynamic CRM for the last 10 years or so, that's probably going to stay static. And then the way that they use their website or the way they use social channels is going to evolve. So dynamic segmentation on top of those static lists makes sense to me. And then we've got to look at how does it all work. We've given you these tips, but are they getting through? So I'm just going to show you what reporting looks like in Mail Plus if you've not seen it yet, if you've not spent a lot of time in the product. And it starts with what we call the impact screen, which is a little bit of a summary of everything: sent, accepted, opens, and clicks. So you can see the whole relationship. So for example, if you're getting only 5% clicks on a campaign, but 100% of those that, if you're getting 5% opens, but every single one of those clicks through, that's probably a segment you need to pay a little bit more attention to. If you're getting loads of opens but hardly any clicks, that means your subject line's good, your audience is kind of interested in what there, but your call to action probably needs some work. So having the two next to each other works quite well. And you can see also there's color coding to, this is an individual campaign view. So you can compare that campaign to other ones, and this will also come on to deliverability, which is the final thing I'm going to talk about in a minute. You can see, is there a specific change relative to what you're talking about? There we go. So what happens to the audience members? This is, as I said, bounce rate is a bigger problem for us than unsubscribes, and then this view breaks it down to the hard bounce, which is that email just doesn't exist, it's gone. Or a soft bounce, which is there's an error at the moment, that's fixable. I think we say 5 soft bounces equal to a hard bounce. It's been a historic thing that we've said. But so a soft bounce, there's not much you can do other than try again later. A hard bounce, you probably need to flush them out of your data set. So it's worth seeing those lists there, and you have the option to export those lists. You can see exactly what's going on. Is it a bunch of contacts from a particular company, for example? They may be having issues. Sometimes you can see what you need to do and how much you need to worry about changes in those rates. Then you can see the reason for bounce, the hard bounce, the soft bounce broken down there as well. This particular campaign, a lot of hard bounces, and there's not a lot we can do about those, unfortunately. So we just need to go back, clean the list out, and resend them to the right people next time around. You can also see bounce email domains, and again, it's a deliverability thing. The domain that you're sending from does matter. We use Spotler events for these ones. We have a separate domain for customers. We have separate ones for leads because of those different behaviors and what we expect to see and how we set up and how we adjust our expectations of the results accordingly. So the open rate, as we said, If it's your main KPI, you need to rethink, but it does still matter. And you can see who's opened, who's not opened it. And you also see opens by time. So are people not opening it straight away because you sent it at lunchtime or you sent it at midnight? So you could send them in and maybe you get a spike. Maybe people are staying up late and catching up on emails. So then the point is this gives you a lot more detail onto who's opening and when. And then a split test we haven't talked about, which is one I want to run as part of this year's Great British Split Test, is sending time. So for a long time, I would be, okay, 9 a.m., open the inbox, see what's happening. But I know a lot of people who say, no, I spend an hour doing some productive work, then I open my inbox, so I'm not reacting to stuff straight away. So I'm taking control of my calendar. Is that something that's happening with your emails? Is that something that you can do? You can see the spikes there that would give you the guidance to make that decision or make that choice. And then devices. So opens on mobile is growing. It seems to bounce around. I think it's over 50% now for the last couple of years. It's bouncing around a little bit. It's not everybody, but it's a significant chunk. I say it is for us, for our audience. Again, depending on your industry, depending on who you are, look at it and find out. So the two questions: are you optimizing your emails for mobile? Should you be? Because it might turn out that every single person is opening on Outlook for desktop. So email optimization actually for you isn't the best use of your time, or it might be that 75% of your audience open on an iPhone first, in which case optimize the heck out of it, because that's the majority of your base, and the people that open it on Outlook get a slightly less good experience. That's fine. You have to make that decision. I'm not telling you which one you're going to have. Look at your own results and find out. And then you've got your clicks, which is, as we said, the main KPI. You want people to do something off the back of your email. And again, you can see the percentages, you can see the counts, you can export those lists to look at your clicks, see the patterns, other particular accounts your sales team are after. You want to know if they're engaging with the emails that you can hand over to them. And then beyond that, you can see what kind of links. So we send out at least once a month, we send out a newsletter type email with a couple of blogs, a couple of white papers, some events, maybe a bit of outside news if there's something interesting to talk about. And then we want to know what are people reacting to? Is our blog not that interesting? Is it super interesting? Is the white paper super hot topic? Do people not care about it at all? So by breaking down which link has been clicked, you can find that information out. The other thing you can do in another possible split test is if you go down that HTML route, you could have a blurb about the webinar presenting, a click here button, and a picture of the title slide, which is also a link. Are people clicking the picture? They're clicking the button. Could you get rid of the button and put more text in? Is the image a waste of time? There's so many ways you can play around and experiment with your content. And I love an experiment. Fully encourage you to test every possible little element of your email and get the best possible results. Make the most use of your time in your day. You can also see it as a visual if you're more inclined to think about it that way, or if you need to present what you're talking about. It looks nice to have that visual if people can't necessarily see. If you're presenting to a director or CEO who hasn't actually seen the email itself, it's not going to mean much to them what that link looks like. Display it visually in your results there. And then we've also added a thing which didn't exist in the old KTML, which is conversion clicks. You can assign particular clicks as your primary CTA. So we might say, oh, hi, come to email tips in 40 minutes, and then lower down, or if that's not for you, we're also doing one about planning holiday campaigns later in the month. We want people to go for the upcoming webinar first, but we'd like to know if they go on the later one. So we'd assign that main as the conversion click, and you can see the breakdown there, so you can see which clicks are coming to the main objective compared to others. I'm a big fan of only having one CTA in an email, but sometimes you need to have a couple, so that's really useful for that. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about before we open up to the broader general question is deliverability. I think I mentioned before, it's often handed over to a deliverability expert, and we do have one of those. We've got a guy called Dan Thorpe who knows everything about deliverability from more than 15 years working around it. But there's some onus on us to do things we can as well. So we talked about the domains that people are unsubscribing from and different domains we use to cater different kinds of behavior. If you're sending from a new domain, don't send from that domain to a million people straight away. Every spam filter in the world will go, hold up, that looks dodgy. So we have if you're sending daily, we say start with 5,000 contacts, double the number of contacts every 4 days. And actually that will get you over 500,000 bandwidth, if you like, within a month. So it doesn't have to be super, super slow. It just needs to be a bit considered to give those ISPs time to see, okay, this is a new domain. They're sending some stuff out. They're building up. They're not just blasting from everywhere. I've put a picture there of senderscore.org, which is a free tool to assess your domain strength. It's on a scale of 1 to 99. Anything over 80 is fine. We're on 99 for our main domain for this, which is useful. And then the main thing, like, yes, there is a lot of technical stuff about deliverability and spam filters and DMARC records, but all that stuff isn't going to help you if you're sending stuff to people that don't care about it. So people unsubscribe because they actually, you know what, I'm bored of this content. It's not useful, it's repetitive, it's irrelevant, whatever it is. So do yourself a favor and use the segmentation, use all these tests and things to deliver good stuff to interested people, and that will do your delivery much more good than spending 5 hours reading about DMARC, which I have done and still don't fully understand it, if I'm honest. So yeah, those are my B2B tips, a few extra bits, and I think we've done quite well to build 46 minutes. We've gone a little over what we promised, but if we've got some room for questions before we send you on your way.
Awesome, thanks, Rich. We have had quite a few questions come in, so I think this first one is B2B, and then I think it's a bit of a general for B2B and B2C. So this one, I work for a B2B events company where we host a high volume of events for a range of different industries. How would you recommend we tailor our email marketing and tone of voice to speak to different industry audiences when we have a high volume of emails going out?
Right. And what we tend to do is focus on a particular thing that we want to. So the follow-up question is, are those events all targeted at a range of different industries? If they are, then I suppose the best way to go about it is to go into those. What publications are your audience reading? Where else do they get their information from? What are the topics that they care about from an outside angle? That they're not reading your emails in a vacuum or coming to your events in a vacuum. They're part of this group. So that's the dynamic bit that you need to do. That yes, you can say, you know, the people who work in the automotive industry is a very static group, but you know, so changes in EV regulations or ultra emission zones, things like that, there are going to be the dynamic things that come out. So go and live in their world, I suppose, is the short answer to what else are they reading, and then yeah, split test the heck out of it. Do you focus on the topics that you're covering in the event? Do you promote? Are there particular individual speakers in that zone that are going to draw attention in? So there's lots of different ways you can segment that. And my short answer is try a bunch of stuff. Do a split test of focus on title versus focus on speaker and see what pulls them in that way, and learn from each other. People that go to events, I mean, there's probably a lot of sort of seeing, do people want to hear about topics they want to hear from thought leaders? That is probably continuous across the industries, and then within those, what are the topics that get them involved? Who are the thought leaders that get them there?
Yeah.
So that's how you take your segments.
I think also look at the data enrichment side of it as well. Have an evolving picture of what you know about them. Because, for example, we talked about the marketing exec versus a director. The marketing exec, actually, you might come back to the idea of they're going to need to go and ask for budget to attend, or the budget for the travel to attend. So actually your wording around the use to allow them to be able to go to their director and say, I'm looking for this much budget. So this is why it's useful for my personal development, versus a director who's reading it and thinking, who should I send from my team? So, but that again comes from, depending on what data you've got. If you've just got an email address, once they're on the site, what else can you be learning about them, and rolling out from there? But something as simple as job title and value to take to someone to ask for something versus value to think about strategically who they want to send is a nice divider. Sorry to jump in.
No, fine, that was useful. Great.
Great, thank you guys. This one I think we can open up to both B2B and B2C. Is there a recommended number of links to have in an email? Can you have too many?
I think you probably can. I saw some research from Microsoft that said the ideal email is 10 words and a button. So we've tried writing emails that short to get our point across. It's tricky. I'll tell you that now. So you probably can have to, but this is why we divide newsletters and sales pot data, because you can test the same audience. You can say, okay, if we send this audience a newsletter with 6 different links, are they quite evenly spread, or do they all focus in on one? And then, okay, if they're all focusing on one, we'll send those people a single CTA email. I think you can have too many, but I don't know what that is, and that's something that you should definitely split test.
And just on the technical side of things, you can, just in terms of email size, one on reader attention. So if you think about your interactions with your inbox, I get sent like news summaries, for example, and if you scroll right to the bottom, it's a very involved read. So their aim is to get you onto the website. But on a technical level, there is certain points where once an email gets over a certain size in terms of bytes, kilobytes, Gmail will clip it, so it won't show the end part of it. So actually thinking about it from that point, as Rich says, actually I think you definitely can have too many links based on how many emails people are getting into their inbox and that brief second to decide, is this worthwhile? But that will depend on the engagement of your audience. For example, if the FT are sending you a specific industry driven newsletter, you may read the whole thing, and actually 10 links isn't a problem, because you'll go through and see which ones, save them for later and so forth. If you've just got that brief snapshot, then I would try and keep it down and keep the email length down and define your next action exactly as Rich says.
Yeah, I think less is best, isn't it, in most cases, and just have one focus. Okie dokie, another question here, which is a really good one. How do you tell if a click is a real click by a real person and not a fake click by the company's system? So talking about bots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely. So this is one of the things that we talked about where Rich kept mentioning around the open and click data. It's also then incorporating that into website data. So how does Google Analytics, for example, enhance the picture? What sessions are coming out of that view as well? There are kind of things you can look for in the reporting. So for example, if you have the interesting thing about this is that it could be genuine, for example. So if you had within like 1 minute of sending it, everybody from a certain domain clicked every single link, like potentially actually there's something there. It may be legitimate, but it's something as a review point. But I think that's why when we talk about the dynamic segmentation side of things, what we're looking to do is bring as many data sources in as possible. So you're looking at your opens and your clicks, and then you're adding that into website data as well.
Yeah, I was going to say speed is the main one that you look for, that because no one clicks like that. But click, read, click, read, click, read.
But equally, in that news example where you're getting something very specific, actually it could be, right, I must remember to do this, load, 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 save to clipboard for later, or save into my news holder. So look at it, actually, absolutely, as Rich says, use speed as one of them in that first minute, click every single link and multiple people from that domain, there's potentially something there, and then bring it into the wider landscape of the data that you understand from what happens post that click.
Awesome, thank you. That's all the questions, guys. So thank you both very, very much. Rich, I think you've got some useful email addresses, haven't you? If anyone does have any further questions afterwards.
Absolutely. So if you're current Spotler customer, then your account manager is your next port of call. If you're not currently, then info@Spotler, or go straight to the demo page, click into it, start having a look around. As we say, you'll get the recording tomorrow afternoon. We try and take 24 hours just to make sure it's all beautifully polished up and looking great, and we'll send that out. If it's the first time you've been on a Spotler webinar, then do check your junk, because it's a domain that your email might not have seen before. And if it's not in your inbox or your junk, we'll get it onto spotler.co.uk/resources as soon as we possibly can. So you can share it back, have it open as you try and build your own split tests or your segments, or discuss it with your team, whatever you choose to do with it. But that's us for now. So thank you very much for your time and your questions, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.